The agenda for today will be, first of all, to introduce yourselves, please, in the chat, as I just mentioned. So just name, organization, and maybe where you're joining us from, where in the world. Then I will take you through a quick introduction to the industry we want, which is the initiative hosting this event today with Better Buying. And then we will have an introduction to the new Better Buying Partnership Index survey and quite a bit of time for Q&A. So it's not a particularly long presentation. We will zoom you through the initiative. We will take you through the Better Buying Partnership Index survey. And then we really hope to hear from you. So please be very prepared to join in and engage with us and talk to us and share your ideas and thoughts and feedback and all the rest of it, because we're very keen to hear from you today. So I will start off by just sharing with you the vision for the industry we want. Now, the industry we want is an initiative that was started by Fairware Foundation and ETI, the Ethical Trading Initiative, in January. And it kicked off in January with a high-level event, which many of you may have been at. And since then, it's been working to define its exact activities and its focus areas for change in the garment and footwear sector. And the vision for the industry we want as an initiative is a garment and footwear industry that realizes its full potential to ensure dignity for workers in decent jobs, thriving businesses along the supply chain, and a positive impact on the planet. And that vision really defines what we refer to as our three pillars. So the three pillars of the industry we want are the environmental, the social, and the commercial. And this is really an initiative that puts each three of those pillars at the same level of prominence. So we think it's very, very important to have decent business practices to support decent social and environmental outcomes. It's not just a means to an end, it's actually a central part of the activities that we'd like to see in the garment and footwear industry. So when we started to consider what we would like to see change and progress and move faster in the garment and footwear sector, we wanted to identify which key areas under the environmental, social, and commercial pillars needed the most attention and the most change and the most acceleration and collaboration. So to do that, we held a number of consultations. Many of you may have participated in them. They took place throughout the spring and the early summer, and they were conducted online, but also in production countries with workers and worker representatives and unions. So through those consultations, we decided, or we went on a process to really identify the four key areas that could sit under each of those pillars that may benefit from having an industry-wide metric. So a way of measuring change and progress on that issue that could bring actors together and really help kind of galvanize change and drive progress at a pace we haven't seen before. So for environmental, the four areas that we identified in consultation with others were GHG emissions, waste, water, and chemicals. For social, the four areas we identified in consultation with others were wages, collective bargaining agreement coverage, remedy, and social protection. And for commercial, the four areas that we established in consultation with others were purchasing practices, risk sharing, buyer power, profit margins, value distribution, and inequality. So the idea in these consultations, as we discussed, was to think about which metrics, which indicators in each of those areas could really focus our attention and bring us all together and really galvanize change. And the idea is really that this supports our mission at the industry we want. And our mission is to align and harmonize the information used to measure progress in the industry. So if we're looking at wages, people are working in the same way, everyone's in step, people are sharing data in the same way, and we can really make sure that we're understanding how we're moving and how we're moving as a sector, not just as individual initiatives. It's also to collect and disseminate examples of successful and scalable solutions to amplify their reach and effect. So we see this becoming possible because when we can measure progress and change, we can really understand what is leading to it. So where we see change and where we see progress, we can help identify the actual initiatives that contributed to that progress. And we can think about how we can bring our efforts together and collaborate and expand and accelerate and grow that solution. It's also to connect, as we are today, I hope, knowledgeable, passionate, and impact-focused stakeholders to measure progress, enhance collaboration, drive change, and also inform policy and hold ourselves accountable and the industry accountable. And finally, it's to focus on inclusive processes, emphasizing the interconnectedness, as I referenced earlier, of the environmental, social, and commercial practices to accelerate transformation. So we're interested in looking at these issues not just in silos, but also how they impact on each other and how we can look at them and the interrelations between them to accelerate change that we haven't managed to achieve before. So as a starting point, because this is quite a large ambition, as you may see, we have decided to focus on 3 key indicators in this first phase. So this is the phase running up to February. And the 3 metrics that we have decided to begin with are wages in the social pillar, purchasing practices in the commercial pillar, and greenhouse gas emissions in the environmental pillar. And today, as you are aware, we're here to talk to you about our commercial metric, which is on purchasing practices. And we're very pleased to share with you all, as we've shared on our communications so far, that we've been fortunate enough to partner with the Better Buying Institute, who are launching a new partnership index survey, which I would love to tell you about, but I don't need to, because Leonie from Better Buying Institute is here, and she is going to walk you through the survey and then hand back to me, and then we'll go to some Q&A. So over to you, Leonie.
Thank you, Olivia, and hello everyone. It's great to see so many of you on the call. Yes, today I'm going to talk to you about Better Buying, who we are, what we do, and how we do it, and our new Better Buying Partnership Index survey, which will provide the industry we want with its key purchasing practices metric. And I also want to outline why it's so important that you engage with us and support our survey. So, what is Better Buying? For those of you who don't already know about us, we're a non-profit that offers a unique system for suppliers to communicate with their buyers about purchasing practices. And what we do is to flip the traditional due diligence process on its head by enabling suppliers to anonymously evaluate the purchasing practices of their customers. And this feedback is turned into data-driven insights so that brands and retailers can see what works well, where they need to improve, and they can track changes over time. We provide our subscriber companies with customized reports that analyze their own purchasing practices, and this helps them focus their efforts more effectively, but also can help them to understand the impact of their actions and also guide their future strategy and their future policies and procedures. In fact, companies tell us that having this data provides internal motivation for making change. Better Buying also aggregates the results to obtain industry-wide insights into purchasing practices. We're also moving to offer training for both buyers and suppliers on best practices and how to improve. And I always want to emphasize that we put the supplier voice at the heart of everything that we do. Our surveys have been developed with suppliers, so they focus on key issues in the relationship and not just what might be easy wins for buyers. And we also provide a safe space for suppliers to raise concerns. We encourage them to contribute to solutions that strengthen relationships with their customers and also enable them to provide good working conditions and wages. So on this slide that you can see here, our vision on the left-hand side is for buyers and suppliers to work together with responsible purchasing practices to achieve shared goals of profitability and social and environmental sustainability. And this is really important because we recognise that one of the greatest drivers of success and of change is if we can have profitable outcomes too. On the next slide, you can see the 7 key purchasing practices that we focus on. And really this shows the scope of company activities that can create problems for suppliers, for workers, and even the environment. So that's a little bit about who we are and what we do. And I'm now going to go into a bit more detail about our annual surveys. We offer 2 main surveys a year. They're very different, but they're also complementary. And the first, which is the one you can see here, is the Better Buying Purchasing Practices Index. And this is our flagship deep dive annual survey, which takes place in April. We ask 48 questions, and the results provide a really in-depth assessment of a buyer's purchasing practices. It looks at the relationship between buyers and their tier 1 suppliers. And from this feedback, we produce individual company reports that drill down into the responses to each of the 48 questions based on supplier ratings and feedback. And we add to this with our own insight and tailored recommendations. We also include insight from suppliers on what they see as the priority areas for improvement. And we can benchmark individual company performance against competitors. We can slice and dice the feedback to show what's happening across different supplier types, different product categories, by region, across different brands, and even channels. And we know from our experience that better buying works. And if we move on to the next slide, here are some of the proven impacts. Now, this slide shows the percentage of buyers who have improved their performance in the 12 months between data collections. And you can see that more than half of buyers made improvements in forecasting accuracy, in tech pack accuracy, and in paying invoices in full. And all of them had moved to accept standardized audits for workplace conditions and environmental performance rather than buyer-specific factory audits. And that's the audit harmonization bar at the bottom of the chart. So we know that having data and benchmarks is helping companies to improve their practices. And I'm now going to move on to the new partnership index, which is going to provide the purchasing practices score for the industry we want. This is a new survey that we have been piloting, but it's been developed in response to requests from existing subscribers who wanted a way to check in with their suppliers in between the annual rating cycle. It also gives them access, enables them to assess the relationship in their upstream supply chain, and it can also be used across multiple industries. This survey has been designed to provide a snapshot of the quality of a brand or retailer's partnership with suppliers. It helps identify potential problem areas in the relationship, and it collects feedback at scale. It's short, it's versatile, it's quick and easy for suppliers to complete. And one of the big points of difference is that it can be deployed across lots of tiers of the supply chain. And we all know that companies are coming under tremendous pressure to have visibility into what's happening upstream in their supply chains. So this survey can gather feedback from material mills, from component suppliers, from packaging providers, from chemical suppliers and logistics providers. So it gives a very broad overview of your relationship with the rest of your supply chain. Like all our surveys, it's designed to be done year after year, so you can track changes over time. And it's a great starting point before progressing to a more detailed investigation through the Purchasing Practices Index. I'm now quickly going to run through how the Partnership Index works. Suppliers complete an anonymous, subjective or opinion-based survey on buyer practices that asks just 15 simple questions. And the resulting report provides a snapshot of actionable data. So basically, it's a look at what can you do now to improve. On the next slide, I'm going to show what the index covers. And we're going to be sharing a QR code and a link to the survey at the end of the presentation, so you can see the questions and try it out for yourselves. I've pulled a couple of questions out in the box on the right-hand side, but in brief, they covered all the areas listed here. So everything from operational efficiency and management of key deadlines through to forecasting visibility and predictability of future orders. And to make it easier for as many suppliers as possible to participate, the survey is available in multiple languages that can be selected from a drop-down menu on the first page. It's translated into Mandarin, Korean, Bengali, Vietnamese, Japanese, Spanish, and Turkish. And these are all languages that have been requested by our subscribers. We want to get ratings from as many suppliers as possible. And if you move on to the next slide, this is the Topline Better Buying Partnership Index rating. That's the score in the speedometer on the left-hand side that we're going to be providing to the industry we want, ETI and Fairware. And this will be the purchasing practices metric, a kind of where are we now score, and it will provide a benchmark to measure future progress. And over the next 3 years, you'll be able to see how this score changes. The traffic light bar on the right-hand side shows the percentage of responses that fall into the various options. So those responses of all of the time on each of the questions are used to calculate the true partners percentage shown in green. And essentially this indicates that you're seen as working closely with your suppliers towards shared objectives. At the other end of the scale, we have the competitors or detractors percentage, which is shown in red. And if you fall into this bracket, you've basically demonstrated a lack of respect for your suppliers and you work against them rather than with them. On the next slide, you can see that we're also offering brands and retailers the chance to purchase an individual company report, providing feedback from your suppliers on your purchasing practices. This is on the next slide, please. And the first question in the survey asks suppliers to name the company that they're rating. So if you want to purchase a report, we'll combine all the ratings received into your own unique company report. You'll need a minimum of 5 supplier ratings for us to compile a report. So the best way of making this happen is by sharing the survey link with all your suppliers and across all tiers of your supply chain. If you have your own company report, you'll be able to compare your partnership score with the overall the industry we want metric, as well as the Fairware or ETI score, which will give you an idea how your buying practices measure against those of the wider industry. On the next slide, you can see that the customized company reports will also give you a score for each of the 15 questions. So you'll be able to see at a glance what processes need to improve internally and where to focus to begin to build better relationships with your suppliers. As you can see on the next slide, the company report also includes an overview of supplier participation, the type of business, for example, where they're based, as well as their feedback on best practices, suggestions on what could improve, and what they consider are the biggest supply chain risks for the buyer. We can also slice and dice your results to give even more insight, as you can see on the next slide. And examples here include by region or different tiers of the supply chain, or as this slide shows, based on how orders were received. How much does a company report cost? The ballpark cost essentially depends on the number of suppliers who rate you. So $5,000 for up to 100 suppliers and $7,500 for between 101 and 500. And data breakouts are also available. We also know that there are brands who have a very small number of suppliers. So if you're one of them and you're interested in a company report, then please get in touch with me. The industry we want will be a 3-year initiative. So this is a great opportunity to get on board from the outset, to purchase the basic report this year and to see how your score changes over time. But it's also a great springboard to move onto a more detailed investigation through the Better Buying Purchasing Practices Index, which will begin next April. So finally, just to recap, the benefits of the Better Buying Partnership Index are that it supports the industry we want's new vision for the garment industry. It collects data at scale on purchasing practices, and with your support will potentially be the largest garment supplier feedback survey on an annual basis. It provides a top-line Better Buying Partnership Index rating, and shows where the industry currently stands on purchasing practices worldwide. The feedback is authentic, it's independent and trustworthy. And by doing the survey with us year after year, you can track changes in performance and benchmark improvements over time. The more data that's collected, the more robust this score will be, and the more we'll be able to measure and track change across the industry. It's also based on supplier input and offers suppliers a key way to tell their side of the story. So again, for suppliers on today's call, we want you to participate. We want you to rate as many of your customers as possible. It's a simple process for your views to be heard. It's quick and it's easy for you to complete. You don't have to gather a bunch of data. You simply get to share your perception of the business relationship. It's your opportunity to tell your side of the story in complete confidentiality. So please use your voice, because the industry is asking for it. And on that note, I'll hand back to Olivia.
Thank you, Leonie. So just to sort of round off and say that the Better Buying Partnership Index is now open. We will share the link in the chat. It's open till the 19th of November. And on the next slide, there is also a QR code to the survey, which you can scan if you have a minute and your phone is at hand. So do take a look at the survey. The link is now in the chat. Brands, you can also share this, of course, with your suppliers and ask them to submit their ratings, but suppliers are also just very welcome. It's a very accessible open survey to just click on the link or use the QR code and go in and rate your customers of your own accord. And to reiterate, all the ratings will be completely anonymous, so you can be confident that no information will be shared with any of your customers. And finally, to say that the indexes, the metrics, will be shared at the OECD Due Diligence Forum in Paris in February, or online in Paris in February. So if you're looking forward to the results, which I'm sure that you are, that will be where we will be showcasing our pilot indicators for this year and talking about the next steps for the industry we want, because naturally the work won't just stop at the indicators. We will be doing throughout the year deep dives into the specific issues and thinking about how we can convene and collaborate and accelerate change and progress on the key issues that are identified through our partnerships and our activities. So if you'd like more information, please do get in touch with anyone on the webinar in the call. But you can specifically reach the Industry We Want at info@industrywewant.com, or you can reach out to Leonie at leonieabraham@betterbuying.org.